You've all heard the talking points. Deshaun Watson was terrible last year. This is who the Browns paid $230 million for? This will go down as the worst trade in NFL history. Right now, the trendy thing to say is that Deshaun Watson is washed and he completely forgot how to play football at age 27. However, I'm here to tell you that is complete nonsense, and the Browns are in very good hands with Deshaun Watson. In fact, I don't even think he played that bad last year, and that's actually what I'm going to be focusing on in this video, the last 6 games of 2022. The Deshaun Watson criticism after his 6 starts last season was one of the biggest overreactions I've ever seen, not just from Browns fans, but the NFL world in general. People were really acting like this former All-Pro had hit a wall in the prime of his youth. I'm telling you, he didn't play that bad given the circumstances, but even if you think he did, there's no reason to believe he won't return to his old form. So for this video, I'm going to attempt to talk people off the ledge about this whole thing and try and bring a dose of reality to the situation. So without further ado, let's get started. Deshaun Watson made his return in Week 13 against the Houston Texans. Now yes, Deshaun played awful on this day. There's no disputing that. He went 12 of 22 for 131 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he had a rating of 53.4. But this was his first game in nearly 2 years, and it was on the road against his former team, so emotions were running high, and he was definitely jittery. That explains some of the passes that were in the dirt. But this was all to be expected. Like I said, it was literally his first game in 2 years. And by the way, the Browns still won the game by 13 points. So yes, he played bad, but that was really to no one's surprise. You could argue that the severity of his poor play was concerning, but considering it was his first game back, I didn't think it was a huge deal. A week later, the Browns were in Cincinnati taking on the Bengals. Deshaun Watson definitely improved from the week before, looking way more comfortable out there. That said, he still wasn't terrific as he threw a bad pick late in the game that killed the brief hope the Browns had at the end. But this game still signaled progression. He went 26 of 42 for 276 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. It wasn't a great game, but it wasn't terrible either. And let's not forget, it was a road game against one of the best teams in the NFL. So in my opinion, there was no cause for concern with Deshaun Watson at this point. The following week, the Browns were at home taking on the Ravens. Deshaun Watson improved even more, putting together a stellar game. In 33-degree weather with sporadic snow showers, Deshaun Watson braved the elements and proved he could play quarterback in Cleveland come December and January. He made impressive throws throughout the night, and even made some nice plays with his legs. He finished the day 18 of 28 for 161 yards with 1 touchdown and no picks. Those numbers might not blow you away, but as I'll point out later, numbers don't always tell the whole story, and sometimes the eye test gives you a better gauge for things. Regardless, this was a big win for Deshaun Watson as it was against a division rival on national television. And don't forget the weather. In Week 16, the Browns hosted the Saints. It was the second coldest game in Cleveland history, so going in, I would have accepted whatever the result was because Deshaun Watson played in Houston for 4 years and then Clemson before that. So playing a negative 20-degree wind chill is something that's not going to be mastered on the first try. Now I know people are going to say, well, he better get used to playing in that weather because he's playing in Cleveland. But that's actually not true because conditions like these only come around once a decade. Most of the time, December and January football will just be 20 or 30 degrees. Anyway, I thought Deshaun played a fine game considering the elements. Again, considering the elements. Yes, the Browns did not get the W on this day, and it was a very bitter loss at the time. But when you consider it was the second coldest game in Cleveland history, I don't think he played that bad. At the very end of the game, he led the Browns down the field and should have tied it up, but David Njoku dropped the game-tying touchdown. So Deshaun proved he still has what it takes to lead an offense down the field when the game is on the line. That's something Baker Mayfield is never able to do consistently. As far as his numbers went, Deshaun went 15 of 31 for 135 yards and 1 pick, but that interception was off a receiver's hands, which I think is relevant. So in my opinion, nothing here was really that concerning from Deshaun Watson, especially when you can argue his coach failed him by throwing the ball 31 times. The next week, the Browns were in Washington taking on the Commanders. Deshaun Watson came through as the Browns got the W on the road, 24-10. Watson threw 3 touchdowns and no picks, posting a QB rating of 122.5. Now, the reason I said numbers don't always tell the whole story is because I actually didn't think Deshaun played that great in this game. In fact, I think the 3 touchdowns are what bailed him out. I thought he looked much better against the Ravens 2 weeks back and played an all-around better game. But 10 years from now, all that will matter is what's in the box score, and that will indicate that he played great on this day. But regardless, Cleveland came away with the win, and Deshaun had 3 touchdowns and no picks, so who's going to complain about that? And that brings us to the season finale in Pittsburgh, where the Browns lost 28-14. It was a pretty bitter end of the season, although the Browns commonly end their season with a loss in Pittsburgh anyway. For everyone who thinks I've been a Deshaun Watson apologist so far, that's not going to be the case with this game. I think he played a pretty bad game here, and I don't have any excuses for him. He went 19-29 for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks, but the picks were awful. The one before the half completely changed the momentum in the game. I've heard Jim Donovan say this a lot, and it's so true. When you're playing over in Pittsburgh, you can't afford to give them any momentum because it will be very difficult to get it back. So that interception right before the half was a killer. This game is another example of numbers being deceiving because if you look at the box score, he tossed 2 touchdowns and had a rating of 84, which is respectable. But I remember coming away thinking he played bad, so the eye test didn't match up with the numbers here. So I don't have any excuses for him, and it was disappointing because he had a chance to change the narrative about the Browns playing in Pittsburgh, but instead it turned out like every other trip down the turnpike. See, this is proof I can be objective, which some of you may have questioned during the first 5 games I covered. So all of that tells you why I don't think Deshaun Watson played that bad in 2022. Now was he in $230 million form? Of course not, but who really expected that? Not anyone reasonable. Sure, I was on the 6-0 Kool-Aid like Garrett Bush, but deep down I knew that was a pipe dream. If the Browns would have squeezed into a wildcard spot, that would have been great, but I was really just hoping to see Deshaun progress and continue to get comfortable in Stefanski's system. I get you can make the case that he underperformed in the big picture, and I'll entertain that, but what I'm pushing back against is the idea that he looked awful and is completely washed now. That is absolutely ludicrous, and hopefully this video helped make that clear. Of course, it's possible this video will age very poorly and Deshaun's career will go up in flames after this year, but I'm not expecting that. At 27 years old, he's in the prime of his career and will now have the benefit of an entire offseason with the team. It would seem unlikely that he's just forgotten how to play football and will never be elite again. I think there are a lot of people who want to see that, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's going to do it for the video, everybody. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, please follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitch, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. All of the links will be in the description. Until next time, I'm Ramen Robbie, and thanks for watching.